Welcome visitors and welcome members to worship in the Unitarian Universalist Church of Charlotte. The Latin word trivium meant literally tri via, where three roads meet. The trivium was an open place, a public place, a common crossroad. Listen carefully, please. There will be an EOS, an end of service test on this later. From trivium came trivialis, which carried the meaning of common, commonplace. And sometime in the late 16th century, that came over into English as trivial, meaning ordinary, then insignificant, trifling. Today is the first Sunday in summer, a season we still imagine, rightly or not, as the time to slow down, to let up, to not approach things with quite the same seriousness as in those more earnest seasons in life. So we who would never be caught on any Sunday celebrating the Trinity gather on this day to let up and lighten up as we celebrate the trivial. That's right, today is for celebrating the trivial. It calls for a little less serious way to sing ourselves into this service.
paraphrase Walt Whitman, you, all of you, are so much sunshine in every square inch.
Synonyms for trivial.
Commonplace, frivolous, immaterial,
Incidental, inconsequential, insignificant, irrelevant,
meaningless, minor,
negligible,
paltry, petty,
superficial, trite, unimportant,
atomic,
beside the point,
diminutive,
evanescent,
evanescent,
evanescent, everyday,
flimsy, inappreciable, inconsiderable, little, meager, mean,
microscopic, minute, momentary, non-essential, nugatory,
nugatory, nugatory,
nugatory,
of no account, piddling, puny, scanty,
skin deep, slight, small, trifling,
valueless,
vanishing,
worthless. A reading from Searching for the Dharma. You've traveled up 10,000 steps in search of the Dharma. So many long days in the archives, copying. The gravity of the tang and the profundity of the sung make heavy baggage. Here, I've picked you a bunch of wildflowers. Their meaning is the same, but they're much easier to carry.
April 7th, 1969 was opening day for the Atlanta Braves. At the top of their lineup was leadoff hitter Felipe Alou, one of 3 Alou brothers to start in the major leagues. Felix Milan, El Gatito, batted second and played second base. Then came the hammer, the great Henry Hank Aaron. Orlando Cha-Cha Cepeda batted cleanup for the team, then in their 4th season in Georgia's capital city. Tito Francona, Cleet Boyer, Bob Tillman, and Sonny Jackson rounded out the everyday players, while righty Pat Jarvis took the mound as the vaulted opening day starter. Their opponent was the San Francisco Giants, whose scorecard included legends Willie Mays, Bobby Bonds, and Willie McCovey, with Juan Marichal, he of the acrobatic windup, on the mound. The Braves would plate 2 runs in the bottom of the ninth, the game winner by pinch hitter Mike Lum, whose liner to center field chased home Sonny Jackson, and they beat the Giants 5-4. It was an auspicious beginning, guided by manager Lum Harris. By the time October rolled around, the Braves would wind up with a stellar 93-69 record. They'd win their first ever National League West crown by 3 games over those same Giants. I turned 9 halfway through that season. At night, my transistor radio earplug was filled with the sounds of Braves broadcasters Milo Hamilton and Ernie Johnson, Sr. In the morning, I'd retrieve the paper from our drive and scan the box scores, poring over baseball's elegantly charted statistics in that era so very long before every game was televised and when papers still printed box scores. I'd learned at that tender age that baseball will absolutely break your heart. Over the course of just 3 short days, October 4th and 5th and 6th, in the first ever Division Series playoff, the 69 Miracle Mets would sweep the Braves. After taking the first 2 in Atlanta before more than 54,000 Mets faithful at Shea Stadium, they'd overcome a first-inning 2-run blast by Hank Aaron and prevail in the series' final game, 7-4. So, to this day, our unused 1969 World Series tickets remain on my baseball shelves at home. A poignant reminder that not all dreams come true. And calling into question that cinematic claim, there's no crying in baseball. To a 9-year-old kid whose dad had grown up walking to baseball games at the old Ponce de Leon Park in Atlanta with his dad, the ups and downs of that season were a big deal. A very big deal. While most of my memories of that summer have long faded, the names of that season's players remain familiar. I can still hear Milo's signature call, "Holy Toledo!" And I can still smell the mixed aromas of those vast curving concourses in the long since demolished stadium. As many of you have heard not a few times before, baseball was and is a big deal to me. In a summer freighted with such difficult personal emotions, baseball this year is especially satisfying and sustaining, particularly given the baby Braves' unexpected success. But I also now understand something clearly. Something I didn't know that season when I turned 9. Baseball is absolutely, utterly trivial. Trivial, of no ultimate consequence. Yes, you heard it right. The admission from one of baseball's biggest fans, it doesn't really matter. And though it felt quite different to me then, in the actual context of things, it never really mattered in 1969 either. Consider that year, that tumultuous, troubling, terrifying year. Richard Nixon was sworn in as president. The Troubles flared in Northern Ireland. Yasser Arafat was elected president of the Palestine Liberation Organization. Soviet and Chinese troops clashed. James Earl Ray pled guilty to assassinating Martin Luther King Jr. The U.S. began a covert bombing of Cambodia. There was serious student unrest from Harvard to Berkeley. A space war raged between the U.S. and the USSR. The Cuyahoga River in Cleveland caught fire. The Stonewall riots in New York marked the start of the gay rights movement. The Manson family murders took place in Los Angeles. Hurricane Camille ravaged the Gulf Coast. There was severe violence in Czechoslovakia. Gaddafi rose to power in a bloodless coup in Libya. Lieutenant William Calley was charged in the My Lai massacre. China carried out an underground nuclear blast. Native Americans seized Alcatraz Island and began a 19-month occupation. The military draft lottery was reinstituted. Black Panther Party members Fred Hampton and Mark Clark were assassinated by Chicago police officers. Nigerian and Biafran troops clashed. The first strain of the AIDS virus migrated to the U.S. via Haiti. All of that was in 1969. How is it possible that I was focused on and have just finished talking yet again about baseball? Obviously, in a world like that, or like this, baseball is trivial. So given this tumultuous, troubling, terrifying year, month, week, why are we paying a moment's attention to baseball or to anything else that's trivial? Why? Because we can. Because we need to. Because not everything in life matters or should matter. Because part of what distinguishes living from getting by, part of what distinguishes living from simply surviving, enduring, is the trivial. Oh, for you, it may not be baseball at all, and may God have mercy on your soul. And if not, what might it be? What plays a role in your life that is honestly of no real consequence? What distracts you? What entertains you? What amuses you? What evokes happy memories for you? What do you do that you know really doesn't have any particularly deep meaning or any especially important significance in the grand scheme of things? I was reminded how inherently puritanical we remain in reading and researching for this particular service. Oh, there were those who joined in celebrating the trivial. However, most found value in trivial pursuits because taking breaks makes us more productive, more efficient, more effective. Taking time for little meaningless distractions can, studies show, help us to focus more intently. Learning mindless things like baseball statistics or crossword puzzle answers or pop song lyrics may aid us in learning meaningful things, that are consequential and important. So we can be excused for indulging in the trivial because it helps equip us to deal with things that are non-trivial. Really? What about enjoying the trivial because it's enjoyable? Would that be such a bad thing? And times barraging us with so much that is so deeply serious. And times calling on people of conscience to be courageous, to acknowledge our complicity in injustices and inequities, to reevaluate old ideals and profoundly problematic old idealists, to pay attention to new and inconceivable oppressions. Even now, is it still okay to indulge in trivialities? Today offers a serious attempt to provide a serious justification for seriously accepting that not everything is serious. Oh, to be sure, when we start confusing the trivial for the more consequential, if ever we forget that what really doesn't matter, we are off track. When we give the trivial too much space in our lives, when we allow it to claim too many of our resources, too much of our time, we are off track. When we begin to believe that the outcome of gains really matters, we are off track. But let such perspective not serve as an impediment to second-guessing, dismissing, or some puritanical denial. Instead, let there be summer seasons in our engagements. Let there be warm and languid seasons for less serious pursuits. Let there be year-round mini summer vacations from earnestness. Let there be times for the commonplace, the frivolous, the insignificant, the everyday, the piddling, the puny, the scanty, the trifling, and even the nugatory. Years ago, I fell madly in love with an utterly compelling Greek man. His name was Alexis Zorba. My love was not Anthony Quinn, mind you. I fell in love with Nikos Kazantzakis Zorba from his amazing novel. In fact, so deep was my love that I've never dared to see the movie for fear it would ruin my imaginative affair. It was sparked in the first exchange in that cafe in Piraeus. Replying to probing, Zorba responds, "Why? Why?" he exclaimed with disdain. "Can't a man do anything without a why?" It was his passion that I found irresistible. Zorba was a man who had worked fiendishly in that Cretan mine, but he would also eat, drink, make love, sing, play the santuri, and of course, dance with that same passion. Doing all those things without any why, not because they were momentously important, but simply because they were woven so seamlessly into his life, into his living. Zorba didn't disdain the trivial. Zorba didn't indulge the trivial. Zorba embraced the trivial and imbued it with seductive vitality. So perhaps Zorba can be the patron saint of the summer seasons of our lives. Times when we let up. Times when we indulge a full 9 innings of sheer enjoyment. In a curious little article, British marketing executive Jim Carroll wrote, "Here's to the inconsequential, the incidental and frivolous. Here's to the modest, the momentary and fleeting. Here's to swimming in the shallow end." Yes, yes, indeed. May it be so.
Welcome to today's service. We are honored to have guests with us. Our members would like to greet you following the service. So that we might do so, if you are visiting, please raise your hand and keep it up. Members, please take note of guests seated near you, and after the service, invite them to join you for coffee and conversation in Freeman Hall. Should it enhance your experience of future services, you can find both a large print order of service and a personal hearing assistance device on the table at the entrance to the sanctuary. If you'd like to learn more about us, please fill out a yellow card and place your completed card in the offering basket when it's passed later in the service. Members with a life event to share can do so on the reverse of the card. You'll find them, along with offering envelopes, on the clipboards at the ends of each row. Please begin passing the clipboards down your row now. Some returning visitors may also be interested in hearing about how to become a member. If so, talk with our membership coordinator, Kelly Green. Her contact information is on the back of your order. Again, welcome to each of you. I struggled just a little to choose my words for this service. My instinct was that what I said needed to be weighty and deep, maybe share something about myself that you don't know, or teach you a lesson that I learned about the value of fun for fun's sake. I had to remind myself that today's service is about celebrating things that aren't weighty and deep, things that are, my new favorite word, nugatory, right? So I offer you this. When trying to express oneself, it's frankly quite absurd, I keep saying that wrong, absurd, to leaf through lengthy lexicons to find the perfect word. A little spontaneity keeps conversation keen. You need to find a way to say precisely what you mean. If you know the song, Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, from the musical Mary Poppins, and you're even a little bit like me, you'll find yourself humming it later today or tomorrow, and you might wonder why it's stuck in your head. You'll have heard other music since then, or between now and then, here in the service, on the radio in your car, over the loudspeaker at the grocery store, or if you go somewhere for brunch. But there it'll be. I'd like to be able to say that I'm sorry for the earworm, but I'm not. If it helps any of you, you can be sure that I will also be humming Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious right along with you, probably for the next 3 or 4 days. If you don't know the song, I highly recommend that you listen to it. You can probably find it on YouTube. And just to solidify the earworm, I invite you to sing the chorus with me. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious. If you say it loud enough, you'll always sound precocious. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. So, while my words may not have been particularly weighty or deep, I really hope they'll stick with you.
Thank you, Belinda. If you come next week at 11:15, or in some of your cases, 11:25, not that it matters, it's trivial. You'll be in on the very last of coffee. We go to our summer worship series next week. One service, 10 o'clock. Say it. One service, 10 o'clock. Very good. Remind your friends. You'll also note in the order that there is an activity following next week's service for the whole congregation. So we hope that while you will come at 10 o'clock for the service, you'll stick around for a get acquainted activity for the whole congregation. As always, we hold with love those in our lives and those in our congregation who are in need. If today marks some special occasion of joy or of concern for you, you're invited to come forward during the playing of the music when the offering baskets are being passed and light a candle, holding the silence in the room as you do so. Even on a day when we intentionally let up, we cannot ignore the realities of these recent days. In ways we could not have imagined, our hearts have broken again at the sights and sounds of babies, of children separated from their families. How hard does one's heart have to be? How suppressed does one's conscience have to be to use children and families as political fodder? To those now wondering, how have we as a country devolved to this level? We must offer some historical context. The very idealists who founded this nation, claiming equality as self-evident, did not hesitate to separate enslaved parents from their children. The very self-righteous educators and religionists claiming to be acting on behalf of the good, did not hesitate to separate Native American families from their children. The bipartisan masterminds of a specious war on drugs have not hesitated and are not now hesitating to use police brutality and the new Jim Crow of mass incarceration, aided by a money bail system and the prison industrial complex, to separate families from their children. This is not who we have become or what we have devolved into. This, sadly, is who we are. And in many ways, it is who we have always been. Reflective of our long-standing investment in white supremacy, motivated by greed and privilege to indulge in hypocrisy. To all who wish to make this about one man, one administration, one political party, the corrective of a more honest perspective is essential. Unless and until we engage in an honest national reckoning, we will be condemned to repeated repetition of devaluing black and brown bodies in ways that excuse separating families from their children. I invite us then into the deep silence of a time of meditation and aspiration. Can you hear the prayer of the children? On bended knee, in the shadow of an unknown room, empty eyes with no more tears to cry, turning heavenward toward the light, crying, "Help me," to see the morning light of one more day. Can you feel the heart of the children aching for home, for something of their very own, reaching hands with nothing to hold on to but hope for a better day? Crying, "Help me," to feel the love again in my own land. But if unknown roads lead me away from home, give me loving arms away from harm. Can you hear the voice of the children, softly pleading for silence in a shattered world? Angry guns preach a gospel full of hate, blood of the innocent on their hands, crying, "Help me," to feel the sun again upon my face. Can you hear the prayer of the children?
Audrey Hepburn said, "To plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow." We will now give and receive the offering.
We hope you'll join us on this next song, and if you feel like getting a little foot loose, we'd love to see you.
is actually a metaphor. It comes from the Latin
So we need your help with this last song. Your part goes like this.